What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome to another YouTube Hangout. I'm super excited to be here with a couple of new friends of mine. They run a podcast called Raising Resilient Teens. So they're from the podcasting world, but I thought, hey, let's turn it into a YouTube video as well. So they're doing their first Hangout with me on my channel here. We're going to talk about how to raise resilient teens, get my take on it. I'm super excited for their mission and for everything they're doing on their podcast. Ladies, welcome aboard.
Thanks,
Evan.
Great to be here.
We're super excited to talk to you.
Maybe just a quick intro for my audience, and then we'll get into whatever questions you have for me.
Okay, great.
Fantastic. Well, Lisa and Lisa, two Australians who met here in the US, and we're on a mission at the end of the day to put a dent in the teen universe by better preparing teens for life and work in the real world.
Yep, and giving some great tools and resources to parents to help facilitate that. So we've been really fortunate to talk to some great people on our Raising Resilient Teens podcast. So business entrepreneurs such as yourself, educators, health professionals, about what we can do to support our teens make this successful transition out of the home.
And we're both parents of teens as well. I have 6 of them, ranging from 18 down to 4.
And I have 2, 14
Wow.
and 12.
Wow, all right. And for
So we're in the thick of it.
for people who want to find out about the podcast, where are they going?
They go to the Teenhackz website, so www.teenhackz.com, and they'll find all the podcast episodes in there.
And we're also on iTunes and Stitcher too.
Yes.
So those are other opportunities to seek us out.
I love it. Well, Lisa and Lisa, over to you. It's your show. Whatever questions you have, let's do it.
Well, Evan, you may be the secret to teen success, given the background that you have. I mean, entrepreneur at 19 years old. That's pretty serious stuff there. Selling a business at such a young age and going on to do such amazing work that you've done. And for us, we love to interview people like you to tap into what was it that got you there? How was it that you were raised that gave you the secrets to just being able to get on and do that stuff?
So I give a lot of credit to my parents. Obviously, when you're young and growing up, your immediate environment is super important. I'm all about belief, and that comes from them. There's a picture on my wall in my office where I have my parents and me, and I'm about 7 or 8 years old. And they used to teach me that I was like a Strilly Carmichael and I could do anything that I wanted. And one of the things that, for the parents listening, that I found really helpful was my parents weren't entrepreneurs. I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my family. So growing up, I never thought I'm going to start my own business and this is my path. But anything I was interested in, they would support me. Mm-hmm. They would encourage me. My first early ventures were in baseball cards. And in 1992 and 93, so I'm dating myself a bit, but the Blue Jays, I'm in Toronto Blue Jays are our baseball team. And they won the World Series in both years. And so that meant in our city, it was baseball fever and everybody was collecting cards. And so I'm 12, 13 years old. And I got into baseball card collecting. I started trading and selling, and I went to different trade shows. And I'd be negotiating with 40 and 50-year-olds, as a 12-year-old.
Fantastic.
Over like 10 cents, for a card, right?
And some of those cards were rare.
Yeah, some of them, I made some money off of it, but most of the cards were 20 cents, 50 cents. And so for the the adults, the 50-year-olds, for them, an extra 5 cents or 10 cents, they didn't really care. But for me, I felt like
you were winning.
Yeah, man, I was getting a deal. And so they would drive me to the different events that was happening. Sometimes, a couple hours out of the city to go to the big sports card events. My mom would take me to spring training every year in Dunedin, Florida, and there I would meet all the different players and get them to sign baseballs and cards. And so, they never forced a career path on myself or my 2 sisters. I'm in the middle. I have 2 sisters, older and younger. And they always allowed us to try to go out and be who we were. Instead of turning us into junior versions of them, they allowed us to be the best version of ourselves. And so they didn't necessarily understand entrepreneurship or know much about it or really baseball or any of the things I was into, but they always supported it and tried to make me believe in myself that I could do it. And it's a lesson I try to pass on to my son. I have an 8-year-old, just turned 8, or is turning 8 in a couple of days. And, you know, if he wants to get into entrepreneurship, that's great. If he wants to be a singer or an actor or, you know, something else, that's great too. And I think just that lesson from my parents of whatever you want to do, we're going to try to support you. We're going to try to believe in you, really helped give me the confidence to go out and do what I did.
Yeah. So can you tell us more about who you were at age 19? Because I'm fascinated. I mean, 19 is still a teenager, given a late teenager, but you've had a successful business at 19. It's an incredible accomplishment. Tell us about your headspace and where you were at that age, what you were thinking about and how you got there.
Sure. So, you know, I had a lot of entrepreneurial tendencies growing up, but I still thought that I wanted to be a banker. If you look at my high school yearbook, it says you got to fill that out, like where you're going to be in 10 years.
Yeah.
I said VP at a bank. So that's what I thought was my path, even though I was selling baseball cards and I tried these little startups and nothing really, you know, I made some money off baseball cards, so it wasn't anything that was huge. Although I do remember, like, we would have garage sales. My parents, my grandparents would put on garage sales, and I would sit outside the garage sale and have my table, and I would sell baseball cards. And I would often make more than they would with everything else that they were selling. But still, I felt like, you know, I don't know any entrepreneurs. It wasn't even an option. Not that it was a limitation, just it wasn't on my radar. And so when I was 19, I graduated high school and went to university and connected with 2 people who had started a business and they needed help. And I thought, I have this opportunity to potentially do this. And I had an experience over that summer that made me not want to live with regret. It was a really valuable lesson that I learned. And so I thought, you know what, I can always get these jobs. I had huge job offers, you know, 80 to 100K starting salary, flying around the world, doing the banking stuff I thought I wanted to do. And I had this startup company where I'm going to make $300 a month. But just something inside me, and again, that experience from the summer just made me feel like I have to know. I can deal with it not working. I can deal with the failure. And there was lots of failures getting started in that company. But I need to see it through and at least know. And I can always go back and get another job if it doesn't work out. Yeah. And so some of my friends were taking a year off and going to travel and just doing whatever they wanted. I said, you know, I'm going to spend this year and try to make this business work. And luckily, I never had to go back and get another job.
Yeah. When you talk about that valuable lesson that you learned over that summer, what can you put it down to? Are you able to pinpoint what that was?
Yeah, 100%. I got to relive part of it this past month. So I went to Paris. Yeah. A solo trip. Just wanted to explore and see what was happening there. In the summer, I was, you know, finishing high school, and I was at the Notre Dame, which is famous church along the river, and I have my map, and this girl comes up and asks me for directions in French. And I kind of, you know, I'm thinking, why is this French girl asking me for directions where I'm obviously not, you know, I'm not from here. I was like, I should ask her out. I should ask her to coffee or something. I should ask her out and see what she's doing. And I didn't have the guts to do it. You know, I was too afraid. I was worried all my French. I can't think of the words, you know, and long story short, I was just too afraid. And so I just gave her the directions of where she wanted to go, and she left. And then I'm upset. Like, why didn't I do that? Like, I should have, you know, come on, man. Yeah. And so she's walking, and she's walking on the other side of the river, and I'm on one side of the river where the church is. And I'm like, okay, I want to take a picture of this moment because I hate how I feel. I don't want it to happen again. And so I took a picture, and I tried to catch her on the other side of the river, but there weren't digital cameras at that time, like a normal camera. That's how old I am, I guess, right?
We're right there with you.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So I came back home to my city, Toronto, and I had the picture, you know, created, and I found out that she's not even in the picture because she walked behind like one of those market stalls. But like, okay, whatever. So I took that picture and I blew it up and I put it on my wall. And it was just, for people walking into my room, I was too embarrassed to tell the story, but it just looks like this beautiful French riverside picture. It's landscape scenery. But for me, it represented missed opportunity. Yeah. Just like not to live with regret. You know, like it still haunted me that months later why didn't I just ask her, even if she said no? Like that moment of pain is better than the months or years of agony of just wondering what if.
Yeah.
So I would go to bed every day and like I'd have this thing above my bed and I'd look at it as a constant reminder that the next time something like this happens, I'm just gonna do it and try not to be afraid, like feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then that happened a couple months later when I had this opportunity. That was between high school and university that summer. And then I went to university and then that opportunity came up with this company.
Yeah.
And I, well, do I take this safe 80 to 100K job that all my friends want? And, you know, it's what I thought I always wanted, or this risky thing. And just looking at that picture every day and feeling the regret of not taking action, I thought I have to do it. Yeah. I'll be okay with it failing, but I have to do it. And so that was, and that's still something that I try to live to this day. If I'm afraid of it, if I ever have a fear of regret, like I might regret this, you know, if I say no to being on the Raising Resilient Teens podcast, I might regret that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so I have to say yes, even though I'm terrified to do it, right? So
that's an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that, because it's, I mean, in talking about resilience factors, that fear piece and being able to overcome that and go, you know what, I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be, but I'm just going to go for it anyway. I think that's a huge lesson, and what a great way to make that, you know, an ongoing memory is to have that photo blown up so that you can constantly reflect back on it. I think it's fantastic.
And I think I
kind of wish I still had that photo. I've told the story a couple of times, and every time I do it, like, I mean, I wish I still have it. I'm going to try to find it and put it up on my wall again somewhere. But it's one of the most valuable lessons that I learned in my life, period. And I feel like I've grown, like, I don't need to see it on the wall as much anymore because it's just a part of me. If I worry that I'm going to regret it, then I have to take some kind of action. And for teens or for parents who are trying to help their teens, if that doubt, like fast forward 10 years down the line, are you going to regret not trying out for that team or not starting that business or not asking that girl out or whatever it is, business, career, personal? If you feel like you might regret it, then then you know what to do. That's always been like and it was the hardest decision of my life, by the way. Like turning down those jobs to go do the business was the single hardest decision ever in my life. But you start building that muscle, and then doing it again and again and again becomes easier.
Becomes easy to flex it. I just love that. And I think that whole philosophy of would you rather fail or regret. And I think, you know, for parents these days, we're so focused on not wanting our kids to fail. And wanting to save them from the pain of that, and yet at the end of the day, what we're not giving them the opportunity to do is to meet the girl, right?
Yeah.
Or
we're trying to pave the way, and maybe pave a way that's not necessarily the way they want to go. To your starting point of you know, creating mini versions of ourselves.
Right.
Something you said earlier that really resonated with me, and I applaud your parents and any parents, is that they didn't try to make you into a mold of them, and they didn't try to force anything on you, that they gave you the freedom, and your sisters as well, to be who you were going to be and the best version of yourself. And I wonder if you have any insights as to where that came from in terms of just their own resilience and their bravery to, I guess, not regret you being the best version of yourself.
Yeah, I think it honestly comes from their parents. And it's funny how we either try to emulate our parents or react violently against them and be the opposite, right? Like as we grow old, we either learn a lot of the values of our parents or we reject it and be a totally different human. And so in my mom's case, her parents were very traditional and also restrictive of what, you know, they felt she could do and was allowed to do. Immigrating to the country, and, you know, in Italian culture, the woman's place is a little bit different, especially when she moved than now. And my mom is an ambitious, driven, you know, fierce woman, which doesn't necessarily fit with the traditional culture. And so she desperately wanted to go off and do her own thing and felt handcuffed a lot from her kind of immediate environment. And so I think, honestly, that was, my dad is the most easygoing human being, you know, on the face of the planet. So he'll just go with the flow on anything, which is great. And my mom, I think because of that restrictive upbringing, then felt, I will never do this to my kids. And so that gave us the freedom to go off and do our own thing. And so I'm very grateful to my grandparents and what they did to her, so that it allowed me the freedom to do the thing that I want to do.
What do you think the biggest challenges are then, just, you know, on the work that you're doing and what you're seeing in terms of challenges facing teens today?
I think one of the biggest challenges is just exposure to opportunity. I think one, from a parental point of view, we always see the world through our lens and our history and our upbringing and what success and what happiness means, because a lot of times, obviously, as parents, we want our kids to be happy and successful. You know, there aren't that many parents who say, I don't want my kids to be a success.
Yeah.
But the advice that we give them and the path that we try to lead them down may not be actually what's best for them. It's all out of love, right? Go take a university education, or go try to be a doctor like I was, or for me, to my son, like, go be an entrepreneur like I am, right? Like, it's a loving path, but again, not one that's necessarily for them. And giving them enough exposure, like, if I didn't meet those people in university, where would I be?
Yeah.
I might be at a bank, and I would like hate that job. So that's a very fortunate incident that happened. Now, maybe I meet other entrepreneurs and something else happens, but I think exposure to opportunities to try and see, I think, is really important. The more you can try things out, especially when you're young. I like to say that, you know, whoever you think the greatest entrepreneur is, or the greatest athlete is, or the greatest, like, if you look at basketball, you know, the greatest basketball player of all time is, you know, a lot of people saying Michael Jordan. Great. I would say the greatest basketball player of all time is not Michael Jordan. The greatest basketball player of all time is some manager at Starbucks.
Right. Yeah.
Because he never tried basketball.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because his parents never put him in class, or because he never saw it on YouTube or whatever. And so I believe that every human being has inner genius at something.
Yeah.
And it's often not necessarily what the parents are interested in.
Yeah.
And so there's one, having, as a parent, the flexibility and freedom to allow our kids to go do things that we think is crazy. Like, I want to start a YouTube channel. You want to what? Like, what? You're going to, that's a career? Right?
Yeah. I could have used that in one of my kids yesterday as I was attempting to set up my own YouTube channel. Come and show me how this works.
Right. So the openness of the parents to not do it like they did it, but then also the willingness to try to purposefully expose kids to new ideas, new ways of doing things. It doesn't have to mean you go and travel the world and spend tons of money. There's a lot of ways to experience new things, whether it's meetups in your local community, whether it's watching YouTube videos together on different subjects. You know, it doesn't have to cost you anything except a little bit of time to allow your kids to try something. Like, maybe your kid is the world's next greatest origami artist.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and who knows, if they don't ever pick up an origami thing, then they're never gonna experience it. Right? And so I believe that everybody has that inner genius inside them, and giving them the exposure is super, super, super important.
Yeah. Damn it. Now I'm going to have to sign my daughter up for gymnastics. That's all she wants to do.
Let her go for it.
I have to let her go for it. Absolutely.
Okay, but why wouldn't you want her to go for it?
I do want her to go for it. There's no doubt about it. But to your point, there's always an excuse as a parent, like, I've got this going on and I'm running around. Can I add one more thing to the plate? But that is actually the gift that we can give them, is that exposure. And I think sometimes parents run into what is the healthy balance of exposure and letting them do stuff, and then pushing them to do so much that they're overscheduled and overwhelmed.
Sure. I think especially if they're asking for it, then you have to, because it's not only for them, it's multi-generational. Like, that could be the thing that she then is like, you know what, my mom let me go into gymnastics.
Yeah.
And that's the lens through which she parents her kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just so important if they're asking for, and I mean, obviously it's not like I want to do drugs or something crazy, right? It's like gymnastics, great. And I feel it, like, I get the pressure, the time constraints. We have our own goals and ambitions and you know, balancing that. But especially if they're asking for it and they want to do it, even if it only lasts a month because they tried and they hate it, great, let's move on and do something else.
It was a great, we were at a school function just before it ended for the summer a few weeks ago, and all the children were getting up and talking about what they wanted to be when they grew up. And there was this one little girl that actually stood out to me, and I felt such a kinship to her parents at the point at which all the children were getting up, and I want to be police officers, and my son, I want to be a zookeeper. And she got up, proud as punch, and she said, I want to be a plumber. And I thought, you are fabulous, and your parents are fabulous. Wasn't it? It was just awesome.
I think it's super important to provide a shield for your kids against what traditional society might try to force them on.
Yeah.
I remember when I had art class when I was growing up. It was, you know, it wasn't kindergarten, but it was like grade school somewhere. And I drew a picture, and I did what the teacher specifically wrote down on the rules, but then I added my own stuff on top of it as well. And I failed that assignment. And then my parents went in, and my mom like read over the rules, and just told the teacher, like, look, he did what you asked him to do, and then he added more. You didn't say you couldn't add more, right? And so like, she gave me the shield to be myself, right? It's like, okay, you don't always want to fight with your teachers. They're like, don't listen to that teacher, doesn't know what they're talking about. But like, giving me the shield to be myself. But if I didn't do the work, like, she also they give me a hard time, right? Like, hey, you got to do your homework. You got to get this stuff done as well. But I think it's really important to be a shield. And I think also allowing them to, giving them opportunities to step up. So as an example, my son was dealing with some bullying last year in his school. He was being bullied by a kid. And I mean, that's going to happen. Your kids will get bullied for whatever reason. They have braces, or they're just, they wear strange clothes or whatever. There's always some stupid reason. And, so gave him some advice on how to deal with it and boost his confidence up as well. And one of the things that we do is at the end of every kind of conversation, or he goes, I tuck him in the bed or whatever, I'll have him say, like, I'll say, I'm Hayden Carmichael and I can do, and he'll go, anything. And so like it's a kind of tradition we have, or Carmichael's can do anything, something we'll all say together. But not just giving him the advice on how to deal with bullies that he's being bullied on, but I also told him it's also on you to, if you see kids younger than you being bullied, to step in and help. And it doesn't mean you have to go and push the kid who's bullying. It doesn't mean you have to get into a fight. Even just the kid who has been bullied, just being their friend and giving them a hug and saying it's okay afterwards. And so, at least for me, there's always and I got this from my mom too, there's always the sense of, okay, that's the lesson, and you have to contribute more somewhere else.
It's the pay it forward.
Yeah, exactly. You have to do more than what just serves you.
Yeah.
And so this is how you deal with your bully. Great. And like, we'll keep updating and monitor the situation. But you can also help others. And through that, you gain strength, and you gain you gain a sense of purpose and worth as well. So that's always at least part of my parenting style. It came from my parents. When I asked my mom was a lawyer, and I asked, why did you want to be a lawyer? She corrected me. She said, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a constitutional lawyer. Because lawyers just enforce the way rules are done, and I want to change the way the rules are written. And so it's always a sense of like greater importance and doing something. And it's what what do I do on my channel? I try to help entrepreneurs. I love your mission, trying to give back. It's a part of me, and I took that part from her. And so then try to pass that down to my kids as well.
So I've got a bit of a tricky question for you, I think, because you've got so much great information. But as the voice behind one word and one rule, what is the either one word or one rule you would pass on or inform a parent about raising teens?
So I love tricky questions. This is good. This is
So
fun.
I'm trying to funnel it down into what is that?
Tricky questions are my favorite. They're not boring questions. So the idea with the one word is, I believe every human being has a single most important core value to them. And the answer is, I can't tell you what that one word is that you need to pass on to your kids, right? Like the best thing you can do. It's like, what's the best career for your kid to go into? Well, I don't know. I have to know your kid, right? Like the answer is help your kids find what's most important to them. Help them understand. And I don't know at what age, you know, I'm not a child psychologist. I don't know if you fully formed all your values by age 6 or 8 or 14 or whatever. You know, as an adult, it's definitely there. But helping them uncover themselves. I mean, it's the theme of this entire interview, I guess. Figuring out what they value, because that helps them make the tough decisions in their life. When they understand what they stand for, it also helps them understand what they stand against, what they're no longer willing to tolerate in their life, from friends, from bad behavior, from, you know, bosses. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. And this is the path I'm going to. And it gives them a lot more confidence. When you don't, you know, I like to say the big decisions in life you make with your heart, not your head. Your head only understands a world that currently exists, but your heart is the one that can create something brand new. And often the best decisions or the biggest decisions you make can't be practical. You know, like if you're trying to decide to get married to somebody, it's not about making a list of, oh, they check off this box and check off this box, but like there's this thing over here, you know, that's what I love, right? And so the big decisions you have to make with your heart, and then use your head to figure out how to make it happen. I want to be, you know, an astronaut. Okay, great. You know, nobody has ever been an astronaut from our tiny city. So, okay, but that's your dream. So let's use our head to figure out how to make it happen. And so helping your kids understand what they value most, and then giving them the confidence to be able to stand up for those values, I think is maybe the most important job as a parent.
And what about for the teens themselves, Evan? What advice would you give teens around using your one word principle for themselves?
Yeah, so I think if you sit down and try to figure out what it is that means the most to you, this becomes the lens through which I see the world and you see the world. So for me, it's believe. You know, my parents taught me to believe. My favorite movie is Seabiscuit. It's about this horse.
Great movie.
Right? His horse is too small and the jockey's too big and the owner went bankrupt and like all these things. And somehow they win all these amazing races. And I've seen that movie like 30 times at least. And it's a cheeseball movie and a lot of people may not like it, but I'm a fan. And so everything that I do in my life centers around belief. You know, self-belief, believe in yourself, so confidence, believe in what you're doing, having passion, believe that it's going to work out and the conviction to follow through, believe in a bigger game and the impact. And so discovering that helped me move towards projects that were way more fulfilling for me, as well as way more impactful, be able to build a team around it, attracting the right people to my company, building businesses, be able to make YouTube videos, all the stuff that I do, and also eliminate the people and projects that don't make sense for me, that sometimes look good on a numbers basis, financial basis, check all the boxes, but they don't
align with your value.
They don't align with belief, right? Like I could sell brand deals all day long to huge corporations, but they don't believe the same thing I believe, and so it's not gonna work out. And so understanding what it is, again, that you stand for allows you to make those tough decisions, allows you to have the conviction to stay on a path, even though it doesn't seem to make any sense. Whether you're an entrepreneur or doing something totally different, there's the safe path that everybody's going down, that people will try to push you towards. Maybe it's your parents, or maybe it's just society and your friends, and everybody's going to do this thing. But you know deep inside that it just doesn't feel right.
Doesn't feel right, yeah.
I could stay here. It could be good. This is where good is the enemy of great. Like, this is good. This doesn't suck. This is a good life. But there's more. I know there's more. I know I could do more. I know that there's more potential here. If I go down this scary path that I don't know if it's going to work out or not. And it's even worse when you have people telling you that it's not going to work out, your parents, and who do you think, you didn't get the education for that. We don't have the money to support that, you know, all the typical reasons that come up. But if you know your one word, if you know what you stand for, then it's much easier to have the confidence in your own path and stay true to it.
I love that, and I think that's sort of almost in some ways redefining what our role is as parents, because for kids to identify what their one word is, we have to facilitate experiences with and for them, right? We're not orchestrating, we're facilitating, and the more exposure they have, and when I talk about exposure, it's not just, as you were saying, whether it's gymnastics or activities but it's also how they participate in the world. It's how they help out at home. It's how they understand what you do. It's how they watch the YouTube channels or whatever the case may be. But that whole learning absorption, if you will, of where they stand in the world and how they react to the world.
And I would love to get parents to think about purchasing a copy of Your One Word, because it is a fabulous book, and to give it to their teen to read, because I think to your point earlier around my tricky question of what is the one word or the one rule, and your answer was fabulous, thank you, is to not dictate that word for them. So don't buy the book, read it as a parent and say, I think your one word should be this, you know, go for it. Give it to them to read, let them go through it, figure it out on their own and make it their own. And I think, you know, it's a great resource.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate the love from both of you. I would, just as you were talking, I was thinking, you know, as I guide people through the one word exercise, people often ask, well, what do you think? And like, I can't tell you what, like, you have to feel it. And I think it's a good exercise too for parents and kids to not make all the tough decisions for them. Like, you need to figure this out. I can help and I can guide and I can support, but I'm not going to tell you what it is that you should do, because that's the easy way out. You need to go figure out. And it's not, I mean, it applies to finding your one word, your most important core value, but also everything else. Like, should I date that person? Should I go get that job? Should I move to this country? Right? It's, if they feel even a little bit of pressure, like your validation is pressure. You feeling like they should not go down that career path is pressure not to go down that career path. Right? And if you say, I support you either way, like whatever you feel is right, let's do it. When my sister, she had a career going to Africa, working for the UN. And when she started, though, she just went over. She was looking for some kind of opportunity to volunteer, to give back. And a lot of her friends and people around her thought she was nuts. Like, you're just going to go to Africa with no connections and no, like, there's no ties and you don't even know what you're going to do. You're just going to find some group and volunteer at. And it eventually led to this career path at the United Nations, which she's been happy with and great. But when she asked me, I thought, hey, like, listen to your heart. Don't ask me. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You know what you want to do. You don't need anybody's permission or anybody's validation. And I would say spend less time worrying about the other people around you. Spend less time listening to them, and teach your kids to spend more time listening to themselves.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. I love that. And we just had that experience. Our eldest had to choose which college she was going to, and she did very well and got accepted into a bunch. And when it came down to it, she had to make a decision between Cal Berkeley here, which is a fabulous school in the Bay Area, and University of Santa Barbara. And all her friends are going to Cal Berkeley. It's a phenomenal school, et cetera, but going through that process and saying, what is it that your heart is telling? What is it? What's the truth that you know for you? She made the decision for Santa Barbara because she knew at the end of the day, the feeling that she had was very different in one place than the other. And I was really proud, and it was a very difficult, there was a lot of angst and she had to go through that. But it was hard as a parent to watch, but very satisfying
without
to
saying,
see.
You should go there.
Without saying you should go there, and without doing what everyone else thought she should do. Well, are you crazy to turn down Berkeley? But she's happy as a pig, and you know what?
Yeah, it's hard as a parent to watch your kids suffer
Struggle.
through struggle, sure. And especially if you have your own opinion. Like maybe her choice was to go to University of Madrid. And now you're going to see your daughter at Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's it.
Yeah.
But like, at what point are you going to let them make decisions on their own? Because you're not letting them live if you're parenting them for their entire lives.
Yeah.
Right? So
absolutely.
You're helping them build that muscle. And the more they can build that muscle,
I love that.
The stronger they're going to get.
Resilience muscle.
Build the resilience muscle, or channel their Indina Menzel and let it go as well. Evan, thank you so much for joining us today. We've really appreciated your insight. And just as we end off, we've got your one word we've recommended to our readers, but is there anything else that you would recommend for a parent or a teen to read, something that maybe was really impactful for you, that you think would also support this initiative around raising resilient teens?
That's a great question.
But is it tricky?
Yeah. The great questions are tricky. I like it. I don't know that there's a book I would recommend. You know, I'm a visual learner, and so I learn a lot through videos, and that's why I started a YouTube channel, because I wanted to learn from some of these successful people. I would say try to find some video content that you connect with and that might challenge your thinking a little bit, whether it's parenting experts or whether it's like if your daughter wants to learn gymnastics, I would subscribe to some gymnastics channels and just start to learn who the people are and what they care about, and try to share some inspiration. Just the support to say, hey, my mom's got my back. Like, it means a lot. And there may be parenting wisdom that comes from it too. If you see, you know, other mothers and fathers in those videos, I learn a lot from not just the words and the advice that people give, but seeing how they do it, go about it, seeing how like that parent shows up to every gymnastics class and is cheering on, like might give you a spark to go and try to spend more time to go out and do it. That kind of stuff. It's like, if you want to learn confidence, you won't get it by just reading, here are the 8 tips to learn confidence. You gotta, if you're around confident people, you're gonna become more confident. And so for me, it would be finding videos. I would subscribe to video content that I felt was relevant.
Yeah, I love it. Actually, appreciate what you just said about the fact that you're a visual learner, and I think that's something for parents to remember, that it's not just all about what the kids are reading or hearing, but you know, letting them see and visualize those different experiences are critical. Thank you
so much for your time. This has been a wonderful interview and a great experience for us too. Something new and something that we might do again. Yeah, it was fun.
I love it. You guys are naturals on camera. I think you should definitely get all of your interviews video format live on YouTube.
Maybe at the Raising Resilient Teens channel.
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
Stay tuned. You never know what's going to happen. As you said earlier, we may have a seed that feels heavy because it's being planted versus buried. Yeah. Thanks, Evan.
Thanks, Evan.
Enjoy. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
See you later. Bye.